Good morning and welcome to Let's Talk Autism. I'm Nancy Alspaugh-Jackson.
And I'm Shannon Penrod, and thrilled
Hi.
to be here with you, friend.
Good to be here with you.
Yeah, and we're going to jump right in. We have news for you we're going to do a little bit later on, and some of it is pretty intense. But we have with us on via Skype right now Vince Redmond, who's a
Yes.
licensed marriage and family therapist. And you guys, if you watched the last hour, boy, Vince, Dr. Doreen Grampuchet said some really nice things about you.
No.
Isn't that nice to hear that
That's
nice
nice.
things were said about you behind your back? That's always the best thing to hear, right?
Yes.
And she said some wonderful things about how knowledgeable you are about ABA in addition to being a licensed marriage and family therapist, which is always the thing that I like to remind all of you watching is that Vince spent many, many, many years working in the field of ABA. So he is that wonderful, wonderful blend of understanding what ABA is, but also being able to help and support a whole family through a whole host of different things. So we appreciate you, Vince, for giving us some time here once a month.
Always. It's anytime.
Well, and Nancy and I wanted to talk a little bit today about transitioning. And one of the first questions you had was transitioning from what to what. But honestly, that's part of the question for the families, right? That Nancy and I both see with teenagers a whole different side of autism now, right?
Right.
It's very eye-opening. And that there is this thing that happens once your kids get to be 13, do you think is about the age where you start to see that, things are going to be different?
Yes.
And and that there is a transition coming, and that there are lots of different things to transition to from this time period that you've had, but it can be a very scary thing in knowing what to do and how to. So
Very scary.
I think
for the parent, it can be completely overwhelming.
Exactly, and so I'd love it, Vince, if you could talk to us a little bit about how the parents can deal with anxiety. Plus, which if you have any knowledge or hope about the transition itself, but it's about dealing with the emotions of all of it. I think is the first step,
Yes.
right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, we think about it, it's a paradigm shift because early intervention and when the kids are younger, we're taught try to keep things as constant and consistent as possible, right? So, and you also look at elementary school, it's very regimented and it's very much the same routine for most of their school, right? They have school, they have recess, they have school, they have lunch, they have a little bit more school, they go home, have therapy, and so forth, right? So it's very regimented, but it's also very consistent and it's very predictable for our kids. So when they go, yes, there's a little bit of anxiety going from first grade to second grade to third grade, new teachers, new peers, but after a couple weeks, everything pretty much falls under the same structure. Now you hit middle school and things change, right? Now you have to go class to class. There's a constant change. Every class has new teachers, new peers, new curriculum, new sets of rules. You know, some have hall passes, some don't let you go to the bathroom, some, make you have to raise your hand to get a pencil and what have you. So it does become very concerning for our kids and very anxiety producing. And again, I'll get back to the family in a sec, but because everything that they're used to over the last 4, 5, 6 years now changes. Now that creates a lot of anxiety in the parents as well, because as parents, we too have been taught consistency, keep the structure the same, keep the schedule the same. So we get anxious knowing that we can't do that. We can't keep it the same. We can't keep it the way that it used to be that's worked well. So we have to be able to think about, okay, how can we alleviate our anxieties by also alleviating the child's anxieties before they actually get into the new, either be school or it be, social situation where those transitions are going to occur. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. So how can the parent relieve their anxiety about it? What are some tips you have for that?
A couple things. The first thing is that the parent, I would very much encourage the parent to to get involved in the school. So know the school, know the layout, know the classrooms, know where things are, because then they can help map it out for their child. They can go to the school during an off day and show them, this is where the cafeteria is, this is where the bookstore is, this is where the library is, this is where your class is going to be, and kind of follow this, not only the schedule, but also where some of the other amenities are going to be, like the cafeteria. So that they can rehearse it, they can practice it, they can actually map it out a couple times, so that when the child goes to this new school, they actually have a map of, you kind of think of it like a treasure map. They have a map to follow to be able to get to their treasures, which would be first period, second period, and so forth. But what it does also, it alleviates the anxiety of the parent, because the parent is now well informed of where everything is in the school. They can answer questions for their children if they come home and they ask, or if they come home and they're stressed. They can talk about maybe different routes to a class, or maybe how to get to the library in time, right? A lot of the schools have 4 minutes, maybe 7 minutes to get from point A to point B. And that could be very, very anxiety producing for our kids if they have to go to their lockers and change books and stuff like that. So you're able to come up with some resolutions to this prior to them actually being involved.
Right. Okay. That's a good point.
And-
Go ahead, Shannon.
Well, I was just going to say, I had a moment last week where I realized that I am struggling a little bit as a woman and as a mom, that my role changed and I didn't keep up with it. And now I'm having to run to keep up. I've noticed at school that it's so different, that they're not as welcoming of parents
Right.
in the high school situation. They really want you to drop off. There are ways that you can get involved. It takes a little bit longer, but I'm also noticing that the other kids, and I think honestly part of it is that I've crested an age where people look at me different. When I was younger, I was, a cool mom.
Right.
The kids don't want to have anything to do with me anymore. I'm just a senior citizen to them. And my kid doesn't want to have anything to do with me anymore.
Right.
And it really, it kind of shook me that I was like, my role has changed. And I know that a lot of people that I know are going through the same thing with kids this age. It's all different, because in some cases our kids are holding on, in other cases they're walking away, and in some case, but it's I'm noticing that I have to deal with this, that I can't just stick my head in the sand. The rules all changed, the game, so to speak, all changed, and that I'm not as much of a central player anymore.
Right.
And then I have emotions about that, but I'm not really sure what to do with it, Vince.
Yeah, I feel the same way, because well, what happened when Wyatt first started high school, I was walking in every morning with him to his home period to talk to his case manager and just kind of socialize. And at a certain point, one of the moms said, that's not cool to do anymore.
Yeah.
You
get
shouldn't do
booted
that.
out.
And now he doesn't want me to walk him in.
There you go. And so, I don't know, you got anything in your magic bag there, Vince, to help us to we need to flow with the changes. There's that line in The Landslide about, can I handle the seasons of my life?
Right.
I don't know.
Right.
I'm right there.
Right. When you bring up a transition that, again, it's a transition for you guys, and for parents, not just you two, but obviously for parents, it's not as much of a transition for the kids. Really, what this is an exclamation of is that you did it right, right? We want the kids, ultimately, the ultimate goal is for them to be more independent. It's for them to want to be in the class without supports, or without as many supports, to be in the class without the security of having a parent around. That means we've done it right. That means you guys have done it right, because that's the ultimate goal. Now, as a parent, it rips our heart apart, when your child doesn't need you anymore, or doesn't want to be with you anymore, but it's for the right reason, right? There's no anger, there's no negativity. This is for the right reason. They want to be with their peers, they want to be in class, they want to be around the other kids, or the other peers. That's good. This is a sign of success. It's not only a sign of success for the kids, but it's a sign of success for the parents as well.
Right. Okay.
And
Very
I
good.
and I recognize that.
Yeah.
I do, that it is a sign of success, but it's hard.
It
It's
is hard.
really, really hard, and I see that it's going to continue to change that way. And I said actually to Bonnie Yates, because she happened to call me right in the moment that I was having this epiphany.
Right.
And I said to her, I said, I think I'm having an identity crisis.
Right.
Because if I'm not Jen's,
You always,
I'm sorry.
I'm going to cut you off there. You always will be. You guys are going to, I mean, us as parents are always going to be, we might not be as much in the foreground, but we're always going to be propelling the ship in the background, right? Let him, we're letting the kids shine, we're letting the kids have their moment, but we also know their deficits, we also know their skill needs, and we also know the areas in which they're going to need support. So always remember that we're always going to be needed, however it may be, but you're going to be propelling the ship in the background. It's just now you're going to be in the bridge instead of out on the bow.
Yeah.
These are just steps towards what eventually is the empty nest, I guess, which is terrifying.
It is terrifying, and and Nancy and I have talked a lot about the fact that it's different for everybody, but it's terrifying to think of your child going out into the world.
Right.
Right? It's also terrifying for the kids that aren't going to go as far out into the world.
I mean, you and I have very different situations. I'm coming to terms with the fact that my child probably is not going to go on to college, and I'm going to have to see where he is going to end up. I'm starting to think about that now.
And that's got to be, overwhelming. I'm starting to deal with the reality that my kid not only is going to go to college, but doesn't want to live at home to go to college.
Right.
And I'll tell you what, Vince, I didn't plan on that. I overshot the bow.
Be careful what we wish for, right?
Right. I mean, I just have always said, he's going to go to college. He's going to go to college. He's just not going to live in the dorms.
Right.
And I've been told in no uncertain terms that he's going to live in the dorms.
Right.
And I've taught college. I wouldn't want a neurotypical kid to live in the dorms. I'm sorry.
I not. I mean, and again, these are the problems. I mean, if we really think about it, these are the problems we want to have.
Yes. No,
Right?
it's absolutely true.
These are the same things I go through. These are the same things that other parents go through when they have their child go to college, right? Should they live in the dorm? Should they live on campus? Should they not? Should they move away? Should they not? Should they apply to local schools, away schools? Those are always going to be difficult, but in a different way, right? Difficult decisions, difficult process for families, but it's also a good one. Because this is exactly where we want Wyatt and Jem and all the other kids that are experiencing this, all the other families experiencing this. This is where we want them to be, because this means that they're going to go on with their education. They're going to meet new people. They're going to be able to have more experiences, and they're going to be able to do a lot more independently than maybe we thought they would at the beginning.
And I still keep saying that to Nancy too. I think that there is a college program that Wyatt can go to and have an amazing experience.
I'm hoping that is true. I'm hoping that is true.
Yes, and I'm already looking and scouting out different programs.
Right. I know you're in my corner for that.
Well, of course, because I think that Wyatt is a brilliant painter.
Right,
and
he is.
That a typical college experience would, be something that would hold him back.
Uh-huh.
But there are college experiences where he could go and paint and be the next great American painter,
right.
I think.
Right.
Sure.
I have plans for Wyatt. I have plans.
Well, that's the thing, is everybody's plan is different. It doesn't need to be, Berkeley or Stanford or Harvard or any of the Ivy League schools. Every kid has different strengths. Every kid has different abilities that we want to harvest. We want to nurture. We want them to experience more of. And there's tons of programs out there for artists, for musicians, for kids that are more analytic, kids that are more athletic. I mean, there's lots of different things that there's no one shape fits all, which is great, because there are programs and there'll always be something out there for every kid, Wyatt included.
So, and this we're throwing right at you. This is how good Vince is, that he can handle anything, and I'm throwing this right at you. But one of the other things that we wanted to talk about, because for a lot of kids it's spring break this week, and other ones it's spring break next week. And we wanted to pick your brain a little bit. It can be really tough on the parents when there's downtime.
Downtime, that was what we wanted to
Yeah, I
talk
kept saying
about
it started with
this.
a D. What was it we were going to
Yes.
talk? This is how the brain, downtime.
Because they seem to be at a loss at what to do. They get bored.
Well,
Yeah.
it's a fact of nature. And I think sometimes it's just stressful for us because we think we have to plan everything and not let them
I
have
tend to
any
be guilty
downtime.
of that. Downtime I'm not comfortable with because I'm so used to Wyatt being so regimented from the time he was very small and having a packed schedule.
Yeah.
So how do we deal with that downtime issue, Vince?
The first thing is, let me just paraphrase what you just said. Schedule, right? Make sure that the kids still have a schedule every day. Now, again, the schedule obviously different because they don't have school, but that they have a schedule. They have something to look to follow. They have something because their anxiety is going to be a lot less if they still know a schedule that they're going to follow. So lunch is at a certain time, breaks are at a certain time, video game time is at a certain time. We're going to go to I don't know, favorite restaurant or go shopping, or we're going to go to the beach at a certain time. Whatever you guys put in there, we want to make sure that it's in a schedule so that they can go ahead and follow it. Right? So then it's easier for you because you guys, now again, obviously for those who are on spring break this week, it's a little late, but for next week, if we can plan it ahead and review it with the kids, it not only reduces everyone's anxiety, right? Family anxiety and the child's anxiety, but it also gives everybody an opportunity to kind of think ahead of what are some of the different things that we can do rather than waking up on Tuesday and say, okay, what are we going to do today? Because that anxiety for the child is going to be great because you're right, their schedule is completely different. So their anxieties are going to be up, which sometimes mean behaviors go up, which brings our anxiety up, and we're kind of, everybody's spiraling up with a lot of anxiety. So the biggest suggestion that I can give is to schedule it out, keep it on a schedule, have it a visual schedule for our kids to be able to see, because it is something that's going to be completely different, but yet mix in opportunities for, video game play and, board game play with people and, going on different outings and obviously bringing in their meal times. And then, depending on the level of kids or how old they are, also their chore time and, things that they might have to do as well. Or maybe we're going to go see grandma and we're going to go on a trip. Make sure that's in there so that they can predict it ahead of time. Because as we know, their anxieties go down the more they're able to predict what's going to happen next.
Right.
Yeah, I think that's true for all of us.
So keep a schedule, regardless of whether you're off or not. Make sure you have that, even if it's a leisure schedule, keep a schedule.
Yeah, and it makes up the different leisure times. I mean, I know sometimes, kids like to read, or they like to play video games, or they like to watch TV, or they like to listen to music, whatever it may be, again, bring in some of those things and let them enjoy them, but do it in a scheduled form so it's not just free access all the time, because then that could be overwhelming for them because there's too many choices.
Right.
But two, it keeps them in line. It keeps them predictable. It keeps them following the schedule, which they're already used to doing.
Okay.
I love what your friend Susan had been on the show before and said. She said pretty much the same thing, but she said don't try to do too many big things all in the same day. That one thing a day is enough to do that's a big thing. So, not to plan to, go to a museum in the morning and a movie at night.
Right.
That has helped me a lot too, because I'll otherwise I schedule all these things on one day and then I'm too tired to do anything for 3 days afterward. So
you run out of things to do. You do it all in 2 days and you get, another 5 days to do something.
Yeah, absolutely. I have to say, we went to a great new museum in Los Angeles yesterday that I think Wyatt would enjoy, and I'll show you.
What was the name of it?
It's, I think it's called the Museum of Illusions, and it's paintings, murals on the wall that look 3D. So you can take a picture with them and you look like you're 3D in the painting.
Oh, neat.
And I think Wyatt would really enjoy that. And we had a good time at it. It was very interesting. I'll show you pictures during the break. Very fun thing to do in LA.
You bring point real quick, Shannon. There's so many different little things that we sometimes don't know. So it's really good to look at your local, reference guide, local tourists. I mean, I know we live here, but look at the local tourist guides, because they will bring those little gems of those little things up, little museums, little shops, little, maybe amusement parks, but not your big Disneyland or Knott's or anything like that, that we don't really even know are there. And they're wonderful. Our kids love them. And we have a great time because it's something that we've never experienced.
Yeah. We
Absolutely.
discovered a great museum on
What's
Saturday.
that?
It was the Camarillo Air Museum.
Ooh,
which
that
has
sounds
planes that you can actually get inside.
Ooh.
Yes, and all kinds of vintage planes and an amazing exhibition.
Very cool.
Yes.
So how did you find that?
I had heard about it and seen the sign for it, and
Oh.
we decided to go on Saturday.
Very
And it was
cool.
they have a docent who leads you around.
Oh,
and
that's awesome.
you can. It's also a working airport, so you see airplanes taking off and landing, and helicopters taking off and
Very
landing.
cool.
So it's great for kids.
Well, I was going to say the way we found the Illusion Museum was if you go on Facebook and you click the events button, you have to look around on your Facebook to find it, but there's an events button and it will show you, there's one way where you can see events that your friends are going to, that they've clicked that they like, and I always find something that I didn't know about. So that was how we found it, was that somebody I'm friends with said that they were going to the museum today, and then I clicked on the website and saw that it was open all the time and that we could go yesterday. So I love that events tab on Facebook, because what it does is it filters for me people that are like-minded like me, that are my friends, things that they're going to.
Right.
And other times there's recommendations that they've said, oh, this was great or whatever. So I love that idea, Vince.
Little festivals and concerts and at the park movies and off the beach movie, all those little, one time a year type of things that happen. And those are great because not only the kids will have a great experience, but the whole family will as well.
Absolutely. And those kinds of things, I always see that you if you do one of those, like the Camarillo Air Museum, and then they remember that. And I also love it because when they come back from spring break, they say, what did you do at your spring break? And to be able to say, I went to this, solidifies the memory for the kids. I love that.
Some activities.
Well, Vince, as always, you are so helpful, so supportive, so fabulous. I want to give you a second to be able to plug what you do at CARD and what CARD Family Support Services are.
Just as we were talking about, we're here, I'm the Director of Family Services, so we're here to not only help families with other resources, help families find different supports that they may need, but also help them navigate, the journey that they're going on through ABA. It's every developmental step is new, and so we're here to help them if they need to talk to someone, if they ever have questions about things. Sometimes they're not able, their local office is really busy and they want, more of the senior level support or advice. They're always welcome to call me and reach out so that we can continue to support them through their journey.
You're fabulous. You are such a good resource. You are incredible. I always enjoy spending time with you, Vince. You're a remarkable guy.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Vince.
So
Thank
much.
you for joining us today.
God bless you.
Okay.
You take care.
Thank you, ladies. Have a great day.
And happy belated birthday. It was
Yes. Oh my gosh. Thank you for bringing that up.
It was yesterday, right?
Happy Monday.
Monday. Okay.
It was Monday. Yeah.
Happy birthday, Vince. You are such a treasured part of the team.
Hope
Man,
you enjoy
everybody
your birthday
appreciates
week.
you.
Thank you. Mwah, mwah.
Mwah,
Okay.
mwah.
All right.
All right. Love
Bye.
you too. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Right before we go to break, I meant to cover this and it keeps flashing at me. Somebody wrote in the question, said they had a question for Taka. Does vegetable oil have soy? And I could call Lisa Ackerman to find this out, but I already know this.
You already know the answer?
Yes, that most of the time when you see something listed as vegetable oil, it is in fact 100% pure soybean oil.
Oh, is it? Okay.
It is. You can look at the label to see, but usually that is what it is. Now, sometimes it could be canola oil, sometimes it could be corn oil, or it could be a mixture of the three. But when it says vegetable oil and it doesn't specify, I think you pretty much have to assume that it is in fact soybean oil.
Okay.
But all three of those are considered vegetable oils. But I do want to say, since you brought it up, because canola oil is a very popular thing to do anymore. There's a lot less soybean oil used in things. If you're going to do a soybean oil, it should be organic and it should be non-GMO. If you're going to do a canola oil, especially, it should be organic. You will see that canola oil is like the cheapest thing that there is that you can buy right now. But if you go to buy the organic canola oil, it will make you have chest pain and step back and go, because it's so expensive.
Okay.
But that's for a reason,
Right.
because regular canola oil is full of things that nobody wants.
Mm-hmm.
It's one of the bad pesticide things.
Okay.
So, and if you ever watch a video of how they harvest and make the canola oil, trust me, you'll be like, oh, I'm going to get the organic one.
Okay.
Or use something else.
Right.
I will tell you that organic olive oil is cheaper than any other organic oil, and it's really a multi-purpose, and you can get different olive oils that have different smoke points. And if it's something where you really need to fry something, then pay for the more organic for something like canola oil, or do it in organic coconut oil.
Coconut oil is always a good choice.
If you're going to fry something, although attempt not to fry if you can.
Right.
All right. We've
Okay,
answered that question. We're going to come back with some news.
Yes.
So stick with us.
When Maddie was diagnosed, I'll be honest, I was very ignorant on what autism was. I knew that autism was basically something that hit boys at the age of 2 to 3 and shut down. And with Maddie, she was doing all the same signs and symptoms of a typical child with autism spectrum disorder.
Stand up.
I was thinking that we might be moving somewhere so that people could assist us either in the house or us going to see our daughter, because she was shutting down to a point that she wouldn't even recognize you being there by putting your hand in her face and yelling her name.
She didn't even acknowledge us coming into the room. She had barely any eye contact. She didn't interact with her sisters. She didn't really do anything. She just basically lined up her toys, and that was about it. With 8 volunteers, including my husband and I'm the team leader, and so I do all the curriculum and get everything ready each week.
Jana was downstairs until 11 o'clock at night working on curriculum, going through 2 different textbooks.
Look, who's that?
And then we, as a group, meet on Monday nights, and we would go through what the curriculum was from Jana. And a lot of times we would go, well, how exactly do you do that? How do you sit her at the table and do this trial-based? Well, what Skills has done for us, it's taken that away from Jana trying to figure out the curriculum for one. She can go down, or even our laptop, and she can sit down, and through all these questions, it comes up with the different programs.
At least for me, it was a relief off my shoulders. I was worried that I might be missing a curriculum that maybe she needs to know, where Skills, they have every possible thing your child needs to know from 0 to 7. They have a program for that.
What noise is this?
Good job!
Every program that we did with her, I knew it was specific for what she needed to learn. Because before Skills, it was a lot of, okay, well, is that really age appropriate for a 2-year-old? You know, because it's not generalized. It's anywhere from 0 to 7. This is what your child needs to know in most manuals you'll find. But for this, okay, yep, she should be learning this. And no, she's not 4 yet. She doesn't need to know that yet.
We are so fortunate that Jana was able to attend a conference put on by CARD that opened the door for Skills, and that there's no looking back for us.
We started using the program in November, and it seemed like by January something just clicked. And she has completely kind of came out of her fog that she was in for quite a while.
I have never read a documented case on any child that has not benefited anything from applied behavior analysis. And now with this new Skills and being, you know, like the E version of ABA, I can't imagine it doing anything harmful to their child. It's nothing but exponential growth for us.
To see her now, it just blows us away. I mean, we call her our little miracle child because in 7 months' time, she has just blossomed into this normal, functioning child.
She is developing roundly. She is socializing. She's playing with her peers. She's learning from her peers. It's very joyous.
Maddie, can you tell me what you see outside?
No.
Snow?
If you're even thinking about doing it, do it. Because the absolute worst thing you could do is do nothing at all. And even if you use this program and it's just a single mom or a single dad working in the evenings with their child, this program is going to benefit them. It's going to show you where they are, it's going to show you where they need to go, and it's going to show you what skills and how to get there. It is an online book on how to help recover your child.
We're back with
Welcome
Let's
back.
Talk Autism. It was nice having Vince here
Yes,
talking
it was
about
so
some of
nice.
these
And
things.
we got a bunch of news to cover. First thing, we got to do a congratulations to the folks at the Ed Asner Family Center. For you guys,
Yes.
if you didn't see, they put out a press release this week saying that they have plans to open in June of this year. And in fact, we're going to be doing a special version of Autism Live on World Autism Awareness Day on Monday. It's Monday. And we're not normally live on Monday, but it's World Autism Awareness Day, so we're going to be live. We have some amazing guests lined up. Dr. Temple Grandin is going to be with us
How
live.
exciting.
And so that's going to be really fun. And we're going to have Nava Paskowitz is going to be here talking about the Ed Asner Family Center.
She's the director,
Yes.
the executive director of the Ed Asner Family Center.
And I love, I know that this is something that is very close to Ed Asner's heart, that he has a lot of family members that are on the autism spectrum, believes in the arts being able to help, but also believes in the whole family, that there is a mindful wellness element that has to be there for parents and siblings. And so we're going to be talking more about this, but we just want to say a big congratulations. This is a very exciting thing.
Yes, they're waiting to find a flagship center, I think. They're in the process of fundraising for that.
Yes. And there will be a lot of enrichment and vocational
Lots
programs
of arts
offered.
programs, music, dance, voiceover, theater, fine arts, culinary, resume building, and job mentorship.
Just love it. So excited for them, so excited for Ed, because I know that this is something that he's wanted for a while. He's got a huge legacy as one of the most decorated American actors in the history of television. He had more, I think until very recently, he had the most Emmys of any male actor. I think maybe he's tied now with somebody, but my goodness, what the canon of work that he's done. He certainly has left behind a legacy of his work, but I know that it's been important to him and been on his heart for a while to make, and he's done so many things already to help with autism.
Yes.
But that a legacy that he could leave behind that would help children for decades to come.
Because he has a son with autism and numerous grandchildren.
So but he always says that, in his family, they don't call it autism, they call it Asnerism.
So we'll be looking to hear more from them about where the first center will be and when those classes and various support groups are going to be available.
They're saying
to the
June they're planning on opening, but we'll hear more from Nava on Monday.
Okay.
So we're really excited about that. Okay. So much news to cover. Maybe if we start with this, how autism changed the world, how it appears visually.
Because we had a story on this last week about a photo exhibit.
Yeah. And it's interesting to me that a friend of mine had reached out to me about a week ago and said, hey, Shannon, I'm about to do sound design for a production of The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Night, and I'm looking for something that will help me as a sound designer to know what it feels like to have autism. And I said, oh, okay, well, there's a couple of things I can tell you right off the bat, that there is a video that they made of Carly Fleischman, I think it's called At the Coffee Shop, where it's from her point of view, and she's hearing all the noises of the coffee shop. And then there was a video that was put out last year about this time that's a VR experience that's called At the Party, or it's called The Party, I think, where you put on a set of VR glasses, and it's from the point of view of a girl who's on the spectrum, and how people at the party interact with her, and you're kind of bombarded visually and with sound. But there's a new one that has come out.
A new video.
It's
It's part of the Too Much Information campaign. and that's brought to us by the National Autistic Society, which is a leading charity in Britain.
Yeah.
They released a video on the 26th of March, which shows the impact of unexpected changes on autistic people.
And this one is called Diverted. So it's a short clip, and you guys are welcome to watch
it shows an actress named Saskia Lupin feeling overwhelmed by unexpected diversions and loud sounds while using public transport.
There you go. So definitely another thing to check out. Now we're going to pivot here to talk a little bit about some studies that have come out with not a small amount of controversy attached to either one of them. So let's start with the new study that shows that the vast, and I'm not sure that this is the right one as I see that but the vast number of children that are on the spectrum and their siblings are in a group of people that are less vaccinated than the general population.
That's right.
And go ahead.
And they're not sure whether this is a byproduct of parents believing that the vaccines had something. It's most likely a byproduct of the fact that the parents believe that the vaccines might have had something to do with the onset of autism in their children.
Well, and that's certainly how it's being peddled in the news.
Right.
And, and I've seen this study talked about in lots of different news outlets, and of course they always reference Andrew Wakefield and the Lancet report and all of that. But one of the things that's maddening to me is that nobody's talking about the autoimmune part of this.
Right.
That children that are on the spectrum, and this goes hand in hand with the next thing that we're going to be talking about, that the CDC came out with a new study that suggests that what they have found is that children who are on the autism spectrum don't just have classic autism and nothing else. Like there's this bubble of autism and that's all you have. In fact, they found that typically children have 4.5 other things that are not
Other
autism.
comorbid conditions.
Right. And that in some cases it could be epilepsy. In other cases it could be
Gastrointestinal disorder.
exactly
Anxiety.
anxiety. They could be dyslexic. They could have an intellectual disability. All of these things that are not autism.
Right.
And they're saying, gosh, if that's the case, there have been many articles talking about, well, let's try to find the one kid who just has autism and doesn't have anything else, and that it's looking for a unicorn, because most kids have other things that are not considered part of the autism diagnosis. Well, if that's true, and I think that it is, the CDC is saying that it's true, and a lot of those things are in the autoimmune category.
Right.
It's a little upsetting to me because every time they talk about vaccines and why everybody should get vaccinated, and I want to be clear here that this show is not anti-vaccine, and anybody who says so will have to deal with lawyers. Right? That's not what we're saying. But when they show something and they say, here are the reasons why you should all go and get your kids vaccinated, they always end with the most powerful reason. They say, because there are a lot of kids who can't get vaccinated and then they show, usually it's a child with leukemia, and they say, here's Billy, and Billy has leukemia, and they talk to Billy's parents, and Billy's parents go, he has leukemia, otherwise we would take him and get him vaccinated, but the doctor says that his immune system is not strong enough to handle it, so we can't vaccinate Billy, which is why we're asking all of you to please vaccinate your children, because if your children are healthy enough to take a vaccine, then would you please go and do it for Billy who can't, right? Which is always very emotional and stirring. And I can relate to that because a lot of our kids with autism have autoimmune
issues. So,
and why doesn't it ever covered that maybe these kids can't be vaccinated because they have autoimmune issues. Why is the assumption always
that the parents are anti-vaccine?
And that everybody has gotten in line behind people that came out and said whatever.
Right.
I mean, it's always somebody different. Why?
They're labeled anti-vaxxers and kind of thrown into that category, and you're saying they may have legitimate reasons for being concerned about that.
Legitimate reasons.
Most likely do.
When the CDC says that our kids have 4.5 other conditions that are all autoimmune based, all of those things are immune system, then why is this always the case?
Yeah.
It makes me nuts.
I know. It's
Makes me
an
full on nuts.
oversimplification.
It really is. But we do need to talk a little bit about this CDC report okay, so it says everything ranging from anxiety to attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, sleep issues, behavioral and gastrointestinal issues. 95% of the kids that they tested, they looked at over 1,900 kids, and 95% of them had at least one issue in addition to autism.
Right.
And most of them had significantly more.
Yeah.
I said 4.5, 4.9 of these secondary conditions, a much higher prevalence than 8-year-olds who don't have autism.
Right. This was done, this study is online this month in the Journal of Autism and Developmental Disorders, and it was led by researchers at the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention.
Well, and one of the things that came out of this study is that there's a call among the medical community to recognize this and to have a more comprehensive approach at treating autism. Of course, we've seen doctors that are in the MedMaps doctors who've been saying this for
how many years?
Ever, and saying treat the whole child, look at these kids, look at them as a whole, and treat them. I've certainly had the experience when my son was very little and had the flu and was quite ill and had been throwing up so much that he was getting dehydrated, and I became concerned, took him to the hospital, and of course they ask, and we all kinds of questions, and we said autism. And they did not give him an IV. And when I asked why, they said, oh, kids with autism don't tolerate that well. They basically just didn't treat him. They sent him home. One of the other kids he was in school with who's neurotypical went same day, same symptoms, got IV antibiotic, got fluids, IV, all this other stuff, and was back at school 2 days later, whereas my kid was sick for 2 weeks. And it really changed when I talked to that other mom, and she said, oh, they didn't give you IV? And I said, no, they said he wouldn't tolerate it. It changed the way I go to the emergency room. It changed the way I talk to people. At that point, I still said, yes, there's autism. But after that, I would say to them, but that doesn't mean you don't treat him.
Right.
You're still going to give him everything, and we'll work through it. We'll get a behaviorist in here if you need to. But he can and will do an IV, and we will do that, and don't not treat him because of this. But you've seen it too. The doctors just go.
Sure. They don't want to deal with it.
They don't know how to deal with
the behavioral issues that might arise. Yeah.
And so they don't treat.
Yeah.
Which is not okay.
No, it's not okay.
Not okay. There's so many things that are not okay. Anyway. All right, we're going to take a short break, and then we're going to come back, and we've got some things that are coming up that we're going to talk about, and plus we're going to talk a little bit more about that show that we're doing on Monday during World Autism Awareness Day. It's going to be very cool. Stick with us. We're very excited because we're in the Noah's Ark exhibit, and we're here with Jason Porter. Thank you for taking us on this tour.
Oh, thanks for having us.
So you're going to show me around a little bit and show me some of the secrets of the Noah's Ark exhibit, right?
Yeah, I'd be happy to.
Cool, let's go. Yeah. So Jason, tell us, this is an amazing space. Why is it so incredible for children?
One of the values of the Skirball Cultural Center is taking care of the earth and one another, and so this idea of repurposing materials that would otherwise be tossed off was a big component to how we design the galleries. It's based on, certainly the story that everyone knows is the one from the Hebrew Bible, the story of Noah. But in our research, we looked at over 200 flood stories from around the world, and many different cultures have flood stories that have similarities, and the similarities that we identified were these 3 chapters. The storm, some crazy challenge that comes to your life, an ark, a kind of means of survival, a way for a community to come together to survive, and finally the rainbow, which is this kind of symbol of hope, the second chance to make the world anew.
Love it. All right, let's take a look through, and we're going to talk about some of the learning opportunities that are available here.
Sure. We really wanted people to kind of discover what they were supposed to do. For example, this elephant has a gong in the center, and there's a little wheel here that you can turn and see what happens. But there's also some hidden things, like there's a little peephole in this polar bear, so it's kind of a moment where you could talk with your kids about what does it mean that that polar bear in there only has a small piece of ice to live on it, and you could talk about kind of the environmental issues that might be associated with it.
All right, should we go downstairs?
Yeah, let's check out the storm.
So Jason, what do you call this room?
This is called the Storm Gallery. In one side of the gallery, we have a storm wall, which is all sorts of sounds and sight effects to make the storm come to life. But we have this, what we call the load up. It's fairly intuitive. You know, you put animals onto the conveyor belt and you turn the wheel and they get loaded up onto the Ark. Except you can't do both at the same time by yourself. It's kind of layered in the doing, the learning that we're really interested in, which is about this notion of working together in order to accomplish something. So, you know, when you first get on the Ark, obviously you enter 2 by 2 as the story goes. And so the animals in this first section of the Ark, you know, they're not quite sure where they should be. They're a little bit nervous about who to hang out with. The gallery is really organized so that the animals are still in pairs. So we talk a lot about what are the elements of home that you need to survive. And it's really a nice kind of intro into the whole experience of being in a community, learning to be together with people who may or may not be the same as us. This gallery of Noah's Ark is unique, I think, in terms of the way that it was designed, that it offers a huge variety of experiences in a way that really accommodates people of all stripes and spots. So there are more quiet zones, like we just left in the move-in day, where you can come into this room where you have a lot of large motor things that are happening, including climbing, and we kind of have nicknamed this the arcade. It's kind of the chapter in the story where they're making new families and they're mixing with other animals that they've befriended. Oh, we have to talk about poop.
We can't do a show without talking about poop.
So, you know, the other fact of life on an Ark is that everybody poops. So the challenge is to, you know, clean up.
Okay, so we're in the last room, very cool room. What do we call this room?
We call this the Rainbow Gallery. You know, people really get that this is a place of hope. Sometimes there's an art making project, that it ends in some sort of inspiration, that people feel like they're inspired to take action in the world and make it a better place.
Thank you so much for showing us everything and telling us about all the wonderful things at the Skirball Center.
Talking about fun things to do, that's a fun one.
Oh, I love. Have you gone to the?
No, I
Noah's
have
Ark?
not.
Oh, you guys should go.
Okay.
It's so good, and what I love about it, you get a scheduled time, and you go in, and so that it's not all crowded once you get in, you know, and all of the different animals are crafted from recycled items. So it's kind of like a good cartoon. You know how when you watch a good cartoon, you can appreciate it from a kid's level,
Right.
but later on, as an adult, you get all the inside jokes and things.
Right.
So people of all ages and abilities to go into the Skirball, and because you know the kids just love, there's all these interactive activities and things to do and stuff to touch, and textures and things like that. And then kids who are a little bit older and a little bit more savvy, there's the I love, we showed a little bit in the video, they have the different poop, and you have to see which animal it goes to, which is it's plastic poop. You know, there's that 7-8-year-old thing that they just, the poop is so much fun.
Yeah.
But from an adult point of view, figuring out, okay, what did they make that lion head out? Okay, that's a mop head, and that's part of a Clorox bleach bottle. And, you know, there's just a different element to it that's just, it's repurposed trash. It's incredible. It's really, really cool. And then they have interactive, they have drum circles and things like that. There's always something going on.
So you highly recommend that for an activity?
Oh, I highly recommend that. And there's one day a week when it's free. So if it's, I love, a lot of times museums have that where one day a week, and sometimes you have to make it a reservation a month in advance. But for families that are struggling to be able to afford the cultural things, boy, do I get that. They're always check and ask, is there a free day?
Right.
Is there some sort of a sponsorship program? But they definitely have that at the Skirball. So that's a great thing. Great way to spend an afternoon is at the Skirball. But you and I wanted to talk about some of the events that are coming up. We just a week from this coming Saturday is the Fullerton Cares Mardi Gras for
which
Autism.
we had them on as a guest, and it sounds like there's all
And
kinds of fun things.
And
to
we've
do
got
there.
more people coming on tomorrow to talk about it. I love the Mardi Gras for Autism, you guys. It's in Fullerton. It's just a hop, skip, and a jump from Disneyland. And oh, it's such a great, great event. Really, really wonderful. So encourage you guys, if you're in the area, to go to that. And we will be doing some live coverage from it for those of you who aren't around. And then there's a weekend off, but then the following weekend, you've got an important event.
On April 21st, we have the Act Today for Military Families Run and Festival.
Yes.
And we're encouraging people to come and take part in that. It's a 10K, a 5K, and a fun run.
It's so
and a
much
family
fun.
festival. So if you can make it down to San Diego, which is a great day trip, that's a great trip or a short overnight if you're on spring break. Spring break, it's over by then. But
right,
if you're just,
it's such a lovely event.
yeah, the family festival is really fun. We have a resource fair. We have a band named North Star that plays. We have One Hope Wine as our title sponsor, and they have a wine and beer tent with Stone Brewery. And there's all kinds of food samples and fun things to do. And you don't have to be a runner. You can come and do the fun run. And then there's a kids zone with sensory friendly and
the
ABA
bouncy
therapists.
house
Right,
and a quiet zone for kids who need to take it a little easier.
So it's April 21st. Once again, it's in Tecolote Shores, which is down in San Diego. You can go to Act Today for militaryfamilies.org to register. That's Act Today for militaryfamilies.org, and you can register.
Yeah, truly, truly an amazing. And you can be a virtual runner or an actual runner. And when I say runner, I don't necessarily mean running because I've done it before and walked, and you can do that, and or you can do it virtually where you don't actually have to put on a pair of shoes. You can do it in your bedroom slippers and say that you're running and raise money. And remember that event, all that money goes to grants for military families. And remember that they have it that much harder because every 2 years they're having to move and get someplace.
That's the usual time.
Plus
and then a parent deployed oftentimes where the kiddo doesn't have, they only have one parent at home.
And financially, it's not as if our military is paid so well that it, and we all know how much it costs, right? So please support the military in any way that you can, and this is a great way.
Great way to support the autism community and the military community.
Absolutely, they intersect.